So what do I know about AOC, aside from the fact that she'll be president in 2024, the rate things are going? Well, I know she's young, I know she's naive, I know she can dance, I know she's a cutie patootie, but I also know that TYT created her and support her, therefore she's unbelievably regressive. Which is a shame because the policies that I do agree with her on get marred by the ones that I don't. And the ones that come to mind specifically, Israel and race relations, which could manifest in the form of reparations or just the general vibe she has. Like her feelings about race are rather obnoxious. Her ignorance about fiscal matters is one thing. I mean, quite frankly, I like her energy, her passion, and who did she replace? A guy who means nothing to me from some random district. So having a little fresh blood is good, but we got to see what she's all about. And it turns out that what she is primarily about is this thing called the Green New Deal. A very catchy title, designed to be so. Because I guess people have a good feeling about the New Deal. And new is good, right? Hope and change, that's catchy. And then green, the color green, it represents life. People have a good feeling about green things. You know, they didn't say the environmental whatever, protection plan, but really, I'm not sure anybody knows what the Green New Deal consists of. So, AOC has created an animation for us to better understand her vision for the future of America. They hired an artist, it looks rather nice, so let's investigate.
The bullet train from New York to DC. It always brings me back to when I first started making this commute.
Okay, so right off the bat, is that AOC right there? So that's AOC in the future. She's planning on being in Congress for 30 years, making this commute. And she has a gray stripe in her hair a la Storm. I mean, Jesus, she's really calling her shot here. Okay, paint me the picture of the future you envision.
In 2019, I was a freshman in the most diverse Congress in history. Up to that point, it was a critical time. I'll never forget the children in our community. They were so inspired to see this new class of politicians who reflected them, navigating the halls of power.
Okay, you think you could throw up another woman of color? I get it. AOC, not subtle. So right off the bat, it's about identity politics, gender politics and racial. There is zero coming together here. This is not, look what we as Congress are going to do with all the whites of Congress. No. It's, look at what the women of color are going to do. We're inspirational to the young women of color. Women of color, women of color. Do you see? Now, this is exactly what Obama didn't do. To his credit, to his genius. Obama, the first black president, he knew what was at stake. He knew he had a chance, and he took a very deliberate tact, which was to not mention his race. He never mentioned it. You'd have to bend over backwards to get the guy to even reference it. And when he did, if the NAACP had some meeting that he had to attend, he would say something gracious and well thought out, but it wasn't tribal, and it didn't alienate the vast majority of everyone else who is not black. Because Obama didn't need that. Obama had a bigger plan. Obama didn't think, do you know what my greatest asset is? It's that I'm black. And I can talk about it all the time and I can reference it. No, he wanted to unite the country, which is obviously difficult, but he spoke to everyone. And that is why he won twice with huge numbers. And it's also why he gained worldwide popularity. AOC is doing the exact opposite by saying, it's women of color, aren't we great, long live the revolution. I mean, it is crazy that she is this short-sighted. Good luck getting this Green New Deal passed via the votes of women of color. That will not work. You're asking for white people's money. So you might want to talk to white people or acknowledge their existence in a respectful manner. You don't.
It's often said, you can't be what you can't see. And for the first time, they saw themselves.
Right, so hey kids of Brooklyn and the Bronx, you can be in the Congress. Thank you, AOC, for rubbing your own clit. Get to the point.
I think there was something similar with the Green New Deal. We knew that we needed to save the planet and that we had all the technology to do it.
Yeah, her ideas do come across like children's theater. That's the problem. Save the planet? I mean, I hope that their language kind of grows up a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit scary. We have a 29-year-old who's speaking to an audience that appears to be 8 years old. You're asking for trillions of dollars. Let's use some big words here.
But people were scared. They said it was too big.
That's what she said.
Too fast.
And that's what she said.
Not practical. I think that's because they just couldn't picture it yet. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with how we got here. 1977, New York. A senior scientist named James Black made a presentation about how burning fossil fuels could eventually lead to global temperatures rising 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 2 years, one of the world's biggest supertankers was outfitted with a state-of-the-art lab to measure CO2 in the ocean, gathering more data about global warming. Guess who was doing all of this research? ExxonMobil, the oil and gas company.
There we go. So, unfortunately, there was a white man featured. The person that gave the speech in 77, white male. That's just historical fact. It would have been great if it was a woman of color with a hijab. But here we go. This is Exxon. There we go. The fat pig white male. Great. He's the head of Exxon. He doesn't give a fuck. He's the bad guy. Okay.
Oh yeah, Exxon knew this whole time, as did our politicians.
There's another one.
10 years later, James Hansen, NASA's top climate scientist, told Congress he was 99% certain that global warming was happening and caused by humans.
A good white.
That was 1988, the year before I was even born.
So now she's again flexing her clit, talking about she's young. I was born in 1988. Me, AOC, I am me. Inspirational to kids. Young. Congresswoman. Impressed yet?
So did Exxon listen to the science, including their own? Did they change business models, invest in renewables? No, the opposite. They knew and they doubled down. They and others spent millions setting up a network of lobby groups and think tanks.
Wow, the board on Exxon is very white male. And to hammer home that point, you play the music in the background. Dong, dong. Right, so the white men are trying to ruin the earth, but you're going to save us, the colored women. This is fun.
To create doubt and denial about climate change. It was an effort designed to attack and dispute the very kind of science they themselves had been doing. And it worked.
Yeah, and that's why you need regulation, because these dudes are capitalistic and they want money, and they will not stop. They will exploit, they will cut corners, they will do whatever it takes to maximize profits.
Politicians went to bat for fossil fuels, and these massive corporations kept digging and mining, drilling and fracking like there was no tomorrow. America became the biggest producer and consumer of oil in the world. Fossil fuel companies made hundreds of billions, while the public paid the lion's share to clean up their disasters. We lost a generation of time we'll never get back. Entire species will never get back.
We lost the rhino? I didn't know there were rhinos in America. There aren't.
Natural wonders gone forever. And in 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed the place where my family was from, Puerto Rico.
Oh God, she did not go Spanish on that. Puerto Rico, you ugly island. Thanks for ramping up the ethnic cred of the pronunciation. You talk like a white valley girl most of the time until you say the place where you're from. Not really you, but your parents, I guess.
It was like a climate bomb. It took as many American lives as 9/11. And in the next year, when I was elected to Congress, the world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions in half, or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death.
Anyone else noticing something about this? I mean, they're not even making an attempt to include white people in this. So here's the problem, guys. There's a new study that says we got 12 years left. Now, I guess it's a different person, a different study, different data, but we're supposed to just trust that. Okay. I mean, those details are kind of unbelievably important to this whole thing because all of her actions are based on the fact that she buys into that study. But she's trying to say, look, you know why that's bad? Because it might affect these people featured here, all of which are brown and black people. I mean, what kind of fucking racial messaging are you sending? Do you think there are not white people in other parts of the world? What was the logic behind putting those faces on that page? I mean, it's so crazy to me. Their bias and their hatred for whites is naked. They're not even trying to hide it. So I gotta say, I see something like this, propaganda like this, thinly veiled anti-white bigotry, and I'm just going, fuck you, fuck your plan. We'll figure out another way, but bitch, you got issues. And you're not garnering support, at least not from whites. And it's so unnecessary. I mean, we're talking about the environment. So why does she let her racial bullshit spill into the environment? Oh, well, I'll tell you why. It's because it defines her. It's at her core. Everything she does, she's focused on her race, her gender. So her trying to save the planet, she's going to do it while being anti-white. She wants it all. Oh my God, is that a blonde girl at the bottom? Did we get one in there? I mean, I doubt it. That's not the color skin for white. It's all brown.
12 years to change everything. How we got around, how we fed ourselves, how we made our stuff, how we lived and worked, everything. The only way to do it was to transform our economy, which we already knew was broken, since the vast majority of wealth was going to just a small handful of people.
Here's an idea. The people on the top with all the wealth, they created that wealth. It's not like there's X amount of dollars and they just took the lion's share of it. They generated it. So when you have people doing really, really well, that's not necessarily bad. That's why anytime people say, there's a wealth gap, I'm like, good. What are you expecting from capitalism? Yeah, that's supposed to be the case. I mean, if Amazon tomorrow discovers a cure for cancer and decides to sell it $5 a pop, and then they earn billions more dollars, these people would say, well, look at that. That increases the wealth gap. But it doesn't. It's a really weird way of looking at the situation. Don't be obsessed with the people doing well. Be obsessed with upping the standard of living for the average person, for the poor and the middle class. So if you can get the poor people, the ones that need help, to maintain a certain standard of living and get the help they need, that should be the focus. It shouldn't be fuck the rich and the successful. Why? That's so counterproductive.
And most folks were falling further and further behind. It was a true turning point.
Of course, it's the whole neo-Marxist rich versus poor, let's go get the guys on top, which fits nicely into the fuck white narrative because there's a lot of white people who have a lot of money.
Lots of people gave up. They said we were doomed. But some of us remembered that as a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War II.
You weren't alive. Remember you were born in 1988? I love how she's already talking as if history has judged her to be a saint. All of these people act in a way that's fake virtuous because they want to be important. They want to be historically important. But the way they frame this is, oh, we've already done well, and in 30 years, we're going to be heroes. I mean, that's how I live. That's how I operate. I assume I'm a hero of history. It's really nauseating to watch. And who am I looking at here? Immigrant family? What is that, a black veteran? Oh, here comes a police officer. It looks like a woman. Will she be of color? Oh, I wonder.
World War II. We knew from our history how to pull together.
There you go.
To overcome impossible odds. And at the very least, we owed it to our children to try.
Rosie the Riveter is black. Oh my God. That's incredible. Not historically accurate, but okay. Yeah, I mean, painting Rosie the Riveter as black, we might as well say Rosa Parks was white. You cool with that?
The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched the decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet.
Shout out to John F. Kennedy, who said he wanted to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. She thinks she's a female-colored JFK. Also a 3-letter acronym.
It was the kind of swing-for-the-fence ambition we needed. Finally, we were entertaining solutions on the scale of the crises we faced.
See, I think she's right now holding back her desire to mention race, racial justice, fuck whites, etc. I mean, they put that sort of language in the Green New Deal, the first draft. And in this, they're showing it with their images and the choices they're making. But I know that she's desperately wanting to talk about that right now. She's like, no, focus environment, global warming. Yeah, that's right.
Without leaving anyone behind.
Aside from white people.
That included Medicare for All, the most popular social program in American history.
And is that a black female doctor? I mean, guys, it comes across as fiction. Just very desperate, sort of self-delusional, paranoid, wishful thinking. Every image you draw is a representation of man bites dog.
We also introduced the federal jobs guarantee, a public option including dignified living wages for work.
Yeah, guys, we got a white guy. He's a worker, working class, construction, and he's working with a black female, as you see all the time. Literally never once in my life have I seen that situation right there.
Funnily enough, The biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one all across the country. We needed more workers. That group of kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana.
This is like a version of Dora the Explorer. It's an inspirational children's book for young women of color. AOC, you know who should save the day? A little girl from your hometown who looks like you. And you know why that's fitting? Because you're saving the planet, AOC. You're the hero, you won life.
Her first job out of college was with AmeriCorps Climate, restoring wetlands and bayous in coastal Louisiana. Most of her friends were in her union, including some oil workers in transition. They took apart
Wait, were they trans people or what were they transitioning to? Were they learning how to code?
old pipelines and got to work planting mangroves with the same salary and benefits. Of course, when it came to healing the land, we had huge gaps in our knowledge. Luckily, indigenous communities offered
Oh my God. Indigenous community. What is he wearing? What is that on his chest? It looks like a fanny pack, but he wears it right in his tits.
generational expertise.
What is that Native American lady doing? Is that pot? Yeah, I don't think the Native Americans would be too big on you bringing in your friggin' tractors and bulldozers. It's probably sacred ground.
To help guide the way. Ileana got restless, tried her hand as a solar plant engineer for a while, but eventually made her career in raising the next generation as part of the Universal Child Care Initiative.
What the fuck? I mean, what is this? Is this BET programming? What the fuck are these blacks doing? What is going on? Just black women, people of... Oh my God! Fuck off! And look at the nail polish here on this emo goth artist. Is she white? Can we change the color of her skin in post?
As it turns out, caring for others is valuable, low-carbon work, and we started paying real money to folks like teachers, domestic workers, and home health aides. Those were years of massive change, and not all of it was good. When Hurricane Sheldon hit southern Florida, parts of Miami went underwater for the last time. But as we battled the floods, fires, and droughts, we knew how lucky we were to have started acting when we did.
50% of firefighters are black, apparently.
And we didn't just change the infrastructure. We changed how we did things. We became
Wait, a picture of a black girl? Really? In this? No.
a society that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all, we stopped being so scared of the future. We stopped being scared of each other, and we found our shared purpose.
Wow. Is this an ad for the Sudan or for America? I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words. They are choosing very specifically to show us this group of people. Now, this presentation is just brushing over all the math, the details, the science. How much money do you want? What do you think it will achieve? What is the problem? How do you have proof that your proposed solutions will address the problem? All that stuff she just fluffed over. Instead, she kissed her own ass and force-fed us a steady diet of young black women? Because progress, I guess? I mean, what the fuck is this?
Ileana heard the call too, and in 2028, she ran for office in the first cycle of publicly funded election campaigns. And now she occupies the seat that I once held. I couldn't be more proud of her, a true child of the Green New Deal.
Well, oh, now I see. Look at this. So Ileana, whatever, the fake girl that is, living in the shadow of the greatness of AOC, but who was also inspired by AOC. I mean, she did come from the same town. So they are going to save the planet. She became a congresswoman based off, look at her voting bloc. They're all blacks. They're all people of color. That's all you need. I mean, it is all you need when you're trying to be a congressperson from a district that is all black or people of color. The problem is, I mean, maybe you might be unclear on this, AOC, there's a lot of white people in the country who are looking at this going, what the fuck are you doing? Great, you can get Ileana there into Congress, but if you want to get Congress or the American people to greenlight your Green New Deal or any other hugely expensive legislation, you're gonna have to kiss our ass. So you might want to tell that artist to break out the whites and the pink color, because we tend to be a little pinkish. And you might want to include us in the future you envision for the country. Otherwise, you won't get the money, we'll all get wiped out with some big megastorm, and we'll lose. And it was all because of you, AOC, and your racial bias.
When I think back to my first term in Congress, riding that old school Amtrak in 2019, all of this was still ahead of us. And the first big step was just closing our eyes and imagining it.
Look at Utopia. Look at the trees. There's people of color. It's amazing. Where is that? Havana?
We can be whatever we have the courage to see.
That's fucking retarded. So here's the thing. It's interesting and funny to understand that that is how they envision the future. And this is how severely ingrained their racial hatred of white people has become. That's funny. But let me just try to educate you, AOC. Be smarter. You have to understand who you're talking to. And if you think that if you could just cater to and kiss the ass of black women and that all the world's problems can be solved via that, you are sadly mistaken. So politically, this is again showing how stupid and naive she is. Even if she did hold that wretched view of the world, in which white people are literally not represented at all, she should be smart enough to know how this is going to come across. Like, run a test on this and don't test it with your progressive echo chamber. Do you think a centrist or a regular white person in the country is going to look at this and not notice the messaging? I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Meanwhile, they watch this and they are high-fiving going, yeah, this is the revolution. They're that lost. But anyway, I mean, she talks about how she's planning on being in Congress for 30 years, and she might be, because right now, because of her youth and beauty, she's very famous, more so than any other congressperson. And in today's culture, fame means a huge amount. Name recognition, brand identity. It means more than what you do and what you say. Oh, look at this. This was inspired by an article by Kate Aronoff, and looks like the editor-in-chief is Betsy Reed, a couple of women. So women are spearheading the saving of the planet. You wouldn't happen to be a feminist, would you? That's not going to show up in your policies, right? Right, okay. Anyway, that is a look at the Green New Deal, and I think they might want to go back to the drawing board.